Hello, and welcome to the second video on our Eco-Logbook prototype. This video will show you about the data entry interface for the Eco-Logbook. In the previous video, we showed you the public-facing view. So to get to the data entry interface, you want to log in. So if you have already registered for an account, you can input your email and password. If your school has not yet been registered, click the Register Your School button. Registration is very simple. All it requires is your school name, postal code, and the school type. Now, a school can only be registered once. Your school has already been registered. You can request from the coordinator, who is by default the first person to register your school. Enter your email address and set a password. We're now registered and logged into the Eco-Logbook. So the first thing you see is just some simple instructions. There are essentially three in the data entry interface. So we can add, edit, and log the eco activities. We can edit information about the school or about the team, and we can add other users to the school's profile. It also shows you the direct link to your school's Eco-Logbook. Let's first look at the user profiles. Only the coordinators have access to this view. There are three types of users for the Eco-Logbook. Coordinators, who can edit all the pages, add other users, and set their permissions. By default, the first person to register is assigned as the coordinator. There are also editors. Editors can modify all the content on the About Your School page and all the activity pages. We recommend this level of permissions for secondary students, perhaps. And thirdly, there are loggers. So loggers can see all the information, but they only have access to the quantitative logging functionality for activities. We recommend this level of permissions for younger or primary students. We can see here for this school, there are two users, the coordinator and a secondary student editor. And we can add more here. There is also a direct link for loggers. So if you think your primary school students will struggle logging in with an email address and password, you can have this direct link set up on your school desktop that they can use to do their editing. Let's now look at the school information page. So all the information here is pretty simple. You set a description for your school or your eco team. You can insert a website if you want, set a feature image, and also set up a photo gallery. And as you might expect, you can delete, view, or change the order of your images. Finally, let's look at the activity page, which is the most important feature of the Eco-Logbook. So on the activity page, you can add an image of your school map. If you don't have one, you can simply take a screenshot from Google Maps. And it lists all of your activities below. So these two that are faded mean that they're not yet visible on your school map. Below that, similar to on the public-facing view, we have a summary of all the activities as well as who's been involved. But let's add a new activity. So you can create an activity in 5 easy steps, and in fact, only one step is mandatory. Here is a very quick summary. So first, we define what the activity is all about. We then determine if we want to highlight it as an upcoming activity and set more information about that. We'll think about how to measure our impact. Then we can log our activity. This is the longest lasting step. And finally, when you're finished with an activity, you can close it or complete it. Let's go now to step 1. So we need an activity and a description. So I'm going to click on this to fill out those areas. So here our activity name is River Clean, and we have a nice description of the activity. Next, it shows our school map that we've uploaded, and we can simply click on the map where we want that activity to be located, and it drops a pin. Next, we'll select the topic of the activity. So here we would select marine. Then we can either upload a feature image for this activity, or we can select from one of 3 defaults. For simplicity, I'll select this default image. Then the Eco-Logbook asks if we're ready to make this activity visible to the outside world. By clicking yes here, the activity becomes visible as a pin on the school map in the public-facing view. Let's go to step 2. So again, we can see at the top here that our activity is now visible on our school map. This is available on every page. Step 2 asks us to consider if we want to highlight this activity as an upcoming activity. If we say yes, we get the when, who, where, and what other details are necessary for potential participants to know about. For this activity, I won't set this to an upcoming activity. Let's go now to step 3. Step 3 asks us how we will measure our impact. How will we know that our eco activity is making a difference? So let's define some metrics. A metric is a type of measurement. So for example, we could measure the number of items crafted, the number of trees planted, kilograms of litter collected, square meters of green space, and these are just a few examples. It can be whatever we want that is appropriate for this activity. Since this activity is about cleaning rivers, how about we measure the miles of river cleaned? Let's add this metric. A pop-up window appears where we have the miles of river cleaned, and we need to think about if we're going to set a goal for this metric. Let's say yes to this, and we'll set our goal to 10. So our goal is now to clean 10 miles of river. We can change this number at any time. We can also think about if we want to set categories for this metric. So for example, categories could be year groups, houses, playgrounds, types of insects, or in our case, how about we set it to rivers? So we'll set it to name of river, and the two rivers that we're planning to clean are the Thames and the Nene River. Let's press save. So when we save our metric, it appears under our custom metrics heading. Let's add a second metric. We'll call this one bags of litter collected because we plan to measure the litter that we collect in terms of the number of bags. Let's add this metric. For this one, we won't set a goal because we don't really know how much litter we expect to collect. However, we will set categories. Perhaps we want it to be a bit of a competition between the houses in our school. So let's say yes. We're going to call this category house, and our houses are Gryffindor, Hufflepuff, Slytherin, and Ravenclaw. And in fact, we might set a second category. This category can be year group. So in each of our houses, we have multiple year groups. We can have year 1, year 2, year 3, year 4, year 5, year 6, or year 7. Let's save this. And we also see that there's one other default metric. We can also measure participants, as participation in activities is a very good indication of how impactful it is. The participant types we can measure are students, school staff, or community members. All right, I think that's enough metrics. Now let's get to logging. So once you've started your activity, you can start logging it. Which is what step 4 is all about. So let's think about some things. Do we want to log who participates in this activity? Let's say yes. You remember this graph from the public-facing view? We can now start logging participation. So let's click this button. So our metric here is participants. Let's set a date, number of participants for this activity, and select a participant type. I'm going to click to fill these out. So on February 1st, there were 34 students who participated in the river clean. Let's log that. I'm also going to track some data about school staff. So there were 12 school staff participating. Let's log that. And there were also some community members. Let's save this. And we can see that our graph is now updated with that data that we entered. Great. Now let's think about if we want to log progress towards our goal. If we say yes, we get this goal gauge that we saw on the public-facing view. So if we select our metric that had the associated goal, so the miles of river cleaned, our goal was to clean 10 miles of river. Let's log metrics towards this goal. So again, our metric is miles of river cleaned, the number of miles, and select a river. So we cleaned 2 miles of river in the Thames River. Let's log that. Let's say the following week, we also did a river clean. On that one, we did 4 miles in the Nene River. So now we have 6 miles total. Let's save this. So now we can see our goal gauge updated where we have 6 out of 10 miles of river cleaned. We're getting there. Now down below that, we have 2 other types of logs. We have a reflective entry log, a chart, or graph. Let's first log a reflection. So from our clean on the January 20th, we might write a little reflection about how that went, and we might add a picture from the clean. Let's save that. So this appears as a little reflection card. Let's log another reflection from our second clean. So this happened February 1st. We'll type a short reflection and upload a new image and save that. Great. But on those occasions, we also measured the number of bags of litter collected. So let's log that. So again, here we have the date, the bags of litter collected, the house, and the year group because we set for this metric. So let's type in some information. 1st of February, 10 bags. The house was Gryffindor, and those were year 3 students. Gryffindor year 2s also participated. So let's enter some information for them. So they collected 15 bags. And you can repeat that for all of the other houses and year groups. You can see that you don't necessarily have to track by all the categories. Let's save this. Now we don't see anything happening because we haven't added a chart yet. So let's do that now. Let's add a chart. So we want our chart to show the bags of litter collected. We have an assortment of charts or graphs to choose from. These charts are good at showing quantities in different categories. These ones show percentages in different categories. And these ones show changes over time. Let's look at the number of bags of litter collected over time. I'll select this. And then we see some options. So we can choose, for instance, the type of chart icon that we'd like. I'll keep it with this litter bag. And of course, we have to add a title for our graph. Let's call this graph Bags of Litter Collected from the Rivers Over Time. Let's save our graph. So now you can see, based on the data that we entered, our little graph of litter collected over time. If you're not happy with your graph, you can always edit it by clicking this little pencil icon. For instance, maybe we want to choose the multiple line graph so that we can show what houses collected the most litter over time. From the category selection menu, let's select house. Now let's click save. As you can see, our graph now updates and shows one line for each of our categories. So we can see that Hufflepuff is in the lead. If we were to log out of our Eco-Logbook and look at the public-facing view, we can see that this activity has been updated with the new graph. If ever we want to edit this activity again, all we have to do is log in go to our activities, click on the river clean, make sure you're in step 4, and either log more data, edit your chart, add reflections, or update your goal and participation. Finally, the last thing I want to show you is the logger view. So let's go to users. As I previously mentioned, one set of users can be loggers. They have the lowest level of permissions and can only access the quantitative logging function. It's a good way to get kids engaged in tracking data. If I click on this link, this is the view of a logger. So they can see all the activities and all the summary data like coordinators and editors do. But when they click on an activity, they get more limited, so they can still log participation, log progress towards their goal, and log the different metrics that appear in the graph, as well as edit the graph so they can play around with different visualizations. So I hope this video on the data entry interface for the Eco-Logbook prototype has been instructive. Do let me know if you have any feedback or comments.